Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is just me today. Oh, fuck's sake. Sorry, anyway, we're having some technical issues this afternoon, so forgive me if it blanks out a couple of times. Today I'm doing a film all on my own that I thought Amelia wouldn't have any interest in because she does not like films that begin with the number one when it comes to the year it's released, because she likes to call them old. Even films from like the 90s she will call old. So this isn't going to be the same as usual because obviously it's just me. Don't even have Silver here tonight. Um, he is still alive, I will add. He is just not present. He is under a bed in a different room. So I'm here with Monty Python and the Holy Grail, of course, released in 1975. A big British film, pretty accurate for comedy. Still relevant, I think. I would like to say well, at least I still quote this all the time. It's a very silly film. It's a silly film, very relaxed watch. Doesn't need much effort in order to really understand what's going on. Just making fun of the legend of King Arthur. Big part British history. If you couldn't guess, I'm from there. Because it's just me on my own, jokes may not be as easy to make, so forgive me on that. However, I thought with a comedy film, at least some of the scenes I can describe will be a bit more easier to sort of read the jokes of, if you wish. But it may just be that I end up just doing a breakdown of the film. Oh, Smitten has arrived. Hello, Smith. Are you my co-host this evening? Oh, you handsome. You're good. So I'll get straight into it. It'll be difficult to have any remarks from Amelia while she's not here, but Smitten is here apparently, so I'll get on with it. So of course, the film came out in 1975. You can currently watch it on Netflix. However, every time I go into a charity shop, it seems like they always have it. I do apologise. There's something going on outside if it picks that up. Netflix, of course, has most of Monty Python, including the TV series, so it may be that I cover some more in the future, but for now I will just be doing the Holy Grail because I think that one is my favourite out of the films. The Meaning of Life I do enjoy. That will be a pretty difficult one to not make short, but here we are. So the film is directed by Terry Gilliam and Terry Jones, two Terrys, both members, of course, of Monty Python, the British comedy group. Terry Jones, of course, passed away a couple of years ago, and this is, well, I think it was very soon, so very recent. I mean, not very soon, of course. So I still think this is one of his magnum opuses. It's definitely up there. And of course, Terry Gilliam is known for all of his silly things with Monty Python. It's written and performed by the British comedy group Monty Python, of course, hence the name. So they play a majority of the Smitten. What are you doing? They play a majority of the cast, so expect a lot of their names being repeatedly said. Smitten, what are you doing? You're interrupting my recording. Smitten was featured in one of the Lego videos when I stacked some boxes next to him and he knocked them over. Bless him. So he has been on the channel before. So anyway, I'll get on with the film, of course. Over the opening credits, there are some strange subtitles that are apparently in Swedish, however become very silly and less like a translation. It's so stupid. You have to see it for yourself. It's very dumb, silly humour. However, the titles say they have sacked the people responsible, but they hire another group that just causes them to play some. Oh my god, he's made him biscuits. Okay, you do what you need to do. Sorry. The real film starts in 932 AD England with a mystery rock. Two men appear: King Arthur and Patsy. Graham Chapman, the late great Graham Chapman, and Terry Gilliam, as mentioned earlier. Patsy is using two halves of a coconut to mimic Arthur's invisible horse. Arthur's doing the action of riding a horse, but isn't actually riding a horse, hence the invisible horse. And obviously, clicking the coconuts together apparently makes it sound like horses, like horseshoes. I don't know. It's a silly joke you wouldn't think of, but apparently somehow they got it to work. They've stopped in front of a castle. They're called down to by a guard to whom Arthur explains he is searching for knights who will join him at Camelot. However, the guard is only interested in Patsy's coconut, and Arthur explains how it may be carried by a swallow. The guard basically is confused to how the hell they have a coconut in medieval England. Because if you didn't know, it's not exactly a local piece of fauna, if you want to call it that. It's not local to England, obviously. And Arthur explains that it may be carried by a swallow. The guard then tries to explain the physics of how a swallow would be able to carry them in explicit detail, including like velocity and measurements. It's an interesting piece that, of course, no one really know in those times. He keeps fussing the computer every time he makes a biscuit. It's not easy to read. So while he's explaining, another guard joins them, and they both have a conversation about it, while Patsy and Arthur just give up and move on. In a town, multiple people are brought to a man collecting those who have died. It's because this is medieval, this is the plague. So this was, I believe, a real thing that they did in those times of collecting the dead in bulk. The man collecting those who have died is played by Eric Idle, until an almost dead man is brought out. But after some persuasion, not a bribe like I remembered, he bashes the man over the head. I don't know if he kills him, but I will be doing the best kill and worst kill, because there are some solid random kills in this. Patsy and Arthur arrive at yet another castle where they are accosted by a worker, played by Michael Palin, and a peasant woman, played by Terry Jones. If we do this more in the future, you will notice that women are often played by Terry Jones. He did that quite a lot, like in Life of Brian, he plays Brian's mother, but also in The Meaning of Life, he plays a few female characters. It makes for some silly moments as he does a very high-pitched noise, like voice for them. The man tries to start explaining how this society works without a lord living in a castle, but an uninterested Arthur tells him to shut up. He shoves him, and the man claims to be repressed. Oh, that sounds all too familiar in this day and age. Moving on, they come across a certain Black Knight. Now, this is one of the most famous scenes that this film is known for. The Black Knight, he is played by John Cleese, is defending a small bridge over a stream. Arthur and Patsy watch on in awe as the man slays a Green Knight by impaling him in the face with his sword, with some very paint-like blood coming out. This is the 70s, so we can forgive him. The two approach and offer for him to join them, however, he is completely unfazed and doesn't respond. When they try and pass him, he denies them passage. Arthur and the Knight duel until Arthur slices off an arm. The Knight is completely unfazed and continues to fight until his other arm is removed. The man, however, continues to taunt him until his legs are cut off, and then he's just like, we'll call it a draw. And they pass him. Some monks pass a witch trial, repeatedly hitting themselves in the face with blocks of wood. Sir Bedivere, once again played by Terry Jones, resides over the trial as two peasants, played by John Cleese and Eric Idle, bring a woman, played by Connie Booth, who is accused of being a witch. Bedivere uses a convoluted explanation on how to determine if a person is a witch, which of course turns out to be true, and Arthur recruits him. Off-screen, several knights are recruited. Lancelot, played by John Cleese, Galahad, Michael Palin, and Robin, Eric Idle. Another knight is recruited, which is aptly... That's not a word. Suitably, we're going to call it that because I forgot it, called Sir Not Appearing in this film. The company arrives at Camelot. Inside, a musical number plays, sung by the knights who are residents of Camelot. I'm not going to sing it because I'll probably get claimed, so I do apologise. You can find it on YouTube and Spotify, all that stuff. Coming outside quickly decide otherwise to enter the castle, calling them silly. Down the road, Arthur and the others are met by a vision of God, who was voiced by Graham Chapman in a pretty cool, like, animated shot of the sky. I mean, animation is used a lot in these films. It is sort of part of their act is to have this little animated segments dotted around throughout the film. It's surprising for such a film as this, because usually you see in films where there may be one animated segment in a live action, or of course films are completely animated. But in Monty Python films, they tend to be strewn throughout the film. Who tell them about the Holy Grail, which is their new quest. Hence the title. We can roll the credits here. There you go. End of review. No. Sorry, I've lost my page. The other members also have servants who play coconuts, as opposed to the knights riding actual horses. It's a running joke. They arrive at yet another castle, except they are greeted by a French knight, played by John Cleese. Another famous scene from this film. Claims they already have a Holy Grail, which they don't, and they don't allow Arthur and the others to see. After Arthur threatens to raid them, the guard yells some preposterous insults at them, and I mean the most, ridiculous insults you've ever heard. But that's part of the charm of Monty Python. After which he promptly launches a cow, which crushes a servant. They rush the castle as they launch more animals and other things at them, but they are forced to retreat. Bedivere devises a plan to build a Trojan horse-style rabbit in order to infiltrate the castle. So a Trojan rabbit. However, it does not include the action of actually being inside it. And after a short time, the French launch the rabbit back out of them, which crushes and, I will say, presumably kills the same servant who got crushed by the cow, because you cannot survive that. A famous historian, as he is credited, played by John Young, is creating a documentary nearby. However, he is promptly slain by a knight who rides past him as his shocked wife runs to him. We learn from him about the knights who separate to find the Grail. So for a little while now, we're going to have a few scenes where it's each of the individual knights going on their own adventures. So there'll be quick little scenes spread out. Robin heads out with his servant and minstrels who make... I'm receiving a phone call. That's very fucking polite. From London. I don't know anyone in London. To some people's shock. I should have answered that on video. That would have been funny. Anyway, I apologise. We're not getting sidetracked. If I get a voicemail, I'll play it. As long as it's not, like, personal. If I get a voicemail, I'll edit it in at the end of the video. So you can look forward to that if there is one. It doesn't look like there is one, so you don't have to forward to the end. So his minstrels make fun of him in the song about him being a coward. He and his group come across a three-headed knight. Each of the heads played respectively by Terry Jones, Graham Chapman, and John Cleese. The three heads bicker with one another and fail to notice Robin and company escape. A brief animated segment shows us the same monks from earlier diving into a pool one by one. Don't know why I included that. It's pointless. Galahad is on his own now after unseen circumstances, until in the darkened sky he sees what he believes is the Grail within, you guessed it, another castle. Galahad bangs at the door to be let in. The doors open where he is welcomed by a group of all women. He is welcomed by their leader Zoot, played by Carol Cleveland, who offers him some hospitality. When some nurses attempt to undress him to see his wound, he panics and remembers his mission. I can't think of a version of Bros Before Hoes. God Before Bod. I don't know. Grail Before Tail. Oh, this seems so much sadder now that I'm on my own. It's pathetic. Grail Before Tail. Oh, that's so good. And I have no one to share it with. Except for whoever listens to this. Oh dear, fucking hell. He runs out of the room where he bumps into more women, including Zoot's twin sister, Dingo, I think she's called, who is also played by Carol Cleveland, who explains that the Grail he saw was simply a beacon that looks like the Grail. Several past and future scenes yells at Dingo to get on with it. Very fourth wall breaking. Before we can get too comfortable, Galahad is rescued by Lancelot and some knights. Bedivere and Arthur meet with a druid, who is played by Terry Gilliam, who informs them of the Bridge of Death before mysteriously vanishing, including the hut around them. They suddenly realise that they have found themselves being hunted in the woods by some cloaked figures. Another very famous scene. If you haven't seen this film already, you will know what I'm talking about, even if you haven't seen it. They're suddenly stopped by their leader, played by John Cleese, who introduces themselves as the Knights of Knee. They offer passage in return for a shut up. Oh, I could be doing so many impressions. But let's not fill this video with that. In a brief shot, we see police officers with the historian's wife. In a castle in the swamps, an unnamed lord, I should say, Michael Palin, speaks to his son, Herbert, played by Terry Jones, who, the voice of him is one of my favourite sort of mocking voices to do. Herbert? Father, my name's Herbert. Who is talking to him about taking over the kingdom. However, the boy would rather sing, much to his father's dismay, who keeps interrupting him. The Lord explains that it's to be married to a princess who he doesn't love, which is, of course, a play on the classic of a princess is being married away to a man she doesn't love, which is pretty progressive for the 70s. The king speaks to two guards on his way out who repeatedly misunderstand his orders. Played by Eric Idle and Graham Chapman. Herbert shoots an arrow with a message out of a window, which hits Lancelot's servant Concord, played by Eric Idle. I told you at the start that there's going to be a lot of repeating people's names, so I do apologise. He reads it and misinterprets it to be a princess needing help. Of course, he misinterprets it as the overdone cliché of a damsel in distress. Lancelot leads a daring attack on the castle, absolutely slaughtering and wounding dozens of wedding guests and guards. He arrives in Herbert's room before the Lord arrives, and Herbert attempts to escape out the window. The Lord does arrive, I should say. That was bad typing on my behalf. After distracting Lancelot, the Lord cuts the rope, sending Herbert plummeting to his presumed death. Lancelot and the Lord head into the main hall, where Lancelot fights more guests before being stopped by him. He announces that Herbert has fell to his death, but however the princess father is alive, which is something he doesn't want, so he has him killed. Lord has his speech interrupted by Herbert, who is being carried in by Concord, before Herbert breaks into song. And this time, he does break into song. And as a result, Concord and Lancelot get away. Arthur and Bedivere arrive at a house asking a woman about shrubberies, and they proceed to bully her by threatening her with saying knee. Until the shrubber, Roger, played again by Eric Idle, interferes. They bring a shrubbery to the Knights of Knee, who since then have had a name change. The Knights of Icky Dicky Doo, or something like that. The Knights order them to perform silly tasks, but when Arthur accidentally says a word they don't like, they quickly shut up before Robin arrives. Arthur and Robin repeatedly say the word, which is revealed to just be the word it, which annoys the Knights before they leave. In an animated section, the company reunites and have to eat Robin's minstrels to survive the winter. And in this little section, we learn that a full year has passed. So it's now 933 AD? Possibly? I do not know. I've already forgot, even though I've already said it. The group eventually meet Tim the Enchanter, played by John Cleese, who impresses them with magic and has knowledge of their quest somehow. He tells them of the cave that contains the directions of where the Holy Grail is. And he also tells them of a truly horrifying creature that guards the cave. And when they arrive at the cave, they happen to find a lone white rabbit, which causes them to let their guard down. Arthur orders a knight to kill it, but he is swiftly killed, and the others rush it, only for 3 more of them to be killed as well. They debate several plans, but conclude using the Holy Hand Grenade of Antioch. Fallout New Vegas players will, which you can also watch on the channel, by the way, will know this because in Camp Searchlight, which is the big town that's overrun by ghouls, but also radiation from a Legion attack, can find the Holy Hand Grenades in the basement of of a church. Forgive me, I didn't get them in the playthrough because weirdly I forgot all about Searchlight. But you will find them there, and that's of course a reference to the Holy Hand Grenade of Antioch. The Holy Hand Grenade is carried by a monk named Maynard, also played by Eric Idle. Arthur throws it, killing the rabbit, while also alerting the nearby police force to his location. They enter the cave, where they find the directions that only Maynard can translate, because he's a monk and he has magic knowledge, discovering that the writer died before he could name the Grail's location. While the group converse, it transforms into another animated scene as a monster appears and devours Maynard as the others flee, and they only escape when the animator, in a very strange moment, suffers a fatal heart attack, causing the monster to disappear. Leaving the cave, they see the Bridge of Death as well as the druid from earlier, who is like the soothsayer of the bridge. And in order to pass, they have to correctly answer 3 questions or be thrown off the bridge to their death. Lancelot approaches first and correctly answers 3 simple questions. What is your name, what is your quest, and what is your favourite colour? Robin follows and is given a bit of an ego, well, not an ego boost, boost of his confidence after hearing those questions. However, struggles in answering the last one because he is given a different question, which is what is the capital of Assyria? And I do not actually know the answer, so I would be thrown to my death. The capital of Assyria is not a real thing anymore. The capital is Assur. There you go. There we are. Now I know the answer. Now I won't be thrown off the bridge to my death. So, of course, he doesn't know the answer, so he's thrown off the bridge. Galahad approaches and fails to decide on his favourite colour, causing it to also be killed. Arthur arrives and is given a question on a swallow. What is the airspeed velocity of a swallow? And Arthur confuses the man by asking him what kind of swallow it is, which, of course, because he can't answer the question, he's thrown off the bridge. On the other side, Arthur and Bedivere fail to find Lancelot because he has been apprehended by the police. Bedivere and Arthur hear some heavenly music and follow it to find a boat that takes them to yet another castle. They have a lot of castles in this film. When they make it to the shore, they discover it's populated by the same French soldiers before. And after being denied entry... Oh, why have I pressed that? Arthur and Bedivere suddenly amass an army out of nowhere. However, before they can invade, the police arrive and arrest them and shut the film down, ending it very abruptly. And the film ends, of course. Bet you weren't expecting that if you haven't seen the film. So, that was Monty Python and the Holy Grail. Genuinely, I'm not taking the piss. That is the end of the film. There is no post-credits scene like Marvel or any shit like that. Personally, this is one of my favourite films ever. It has a lot of meaning to me. I used to watch this all the time when I was young. I'm still young. I'm not a fucking old fart. Back when I was young, probably in high school, I used to watch this film a lot, but just because it was silly, it was funny, and I used to watch it with my dad a lot. But we don't really watch these kinds of things anymore. We just watch fucking Bigfoot things, which I'm probably end up covering some shit like that in the future. Easily gonna give it. I don't know. Usually I go off Amelia's, but here I am. Probably give it 8.5 out of 10. It's a big film. The budget must have been quite a lot, and of course it's just silly humor, and it means a lot to me. However, there are a lot of the background extras that are very uh, probably paid a fiver to be in the film, so they're very half-assing their performances and pulling faces. But the history of this film is insane. No pun, no joke intended, because of course it's a historical film. But it's such a good film. Definitely worth going and watching. There is currently a motorcycle going past my house. So thank you very much. Amelia should be back next time, I think. I'm not sure. We'll decide on whether or not this counts as my turn or not. But I was just wanted to record a film review, just because I was on my own and Netflix was there, so I just thought, fuck it. So yeah, thank you ever so much for listening. I, of course, have been your host, Purple Midnight 8. Maybe one day Morgan will be back. Amelia will be back for the next one, hopefully. So, yeah. In the meantime, we've got playthrough series going. You can find all our links in the description, and we'll see you in the next one.